Alrighty, we are digging for wisdom. State Semifinal edition. There's my guy Diggsy over here on the Wizord. Oh my God, we're down to 4 teams in each classification, each division, and pretty soon we'll be done with our. That's sad. I just now thought about it. We'll be done with the podcast here in 2
Next
weeks.
week is our last podcast, Ward. 7 days from right now.
I'm bringing up the sad stuff early.
And that never works because I know we tape this early, but when they see it, it's going to be 7 days, and then they get their last one. It's 7 days for us, too. It's amazing. It's sad. It's over.
We better make these last 2 some real doozies, man, because they're dependent on us. I'm fresh back from Waco. It was a long, rainy Saturday with the TAPS championships and then the DeSoto debacle. I know you were out. You were live viewing everything, right? You were just sitting down on Saturday, taking a look at everything. How'd that work out for you? Did it give you what you needed?
It did. I mean, I got to go from Allen to North Crowley, and I was like, oh, that's not working. And then I went over to DeSoto and Longview, and that game was 7-6 at one point. I was like, okay, well, this one's. I seriously thought to myself, which is embarrassing. After DeSoto went up 7-6, I was like, this game's done. I'm going to Denton Ryan Aledo at this point. And then that game sucked me in because that was 21-10, and at that point, and then all of a sudden here comes the Denton Ryan comeback. So I was in on that, and then I'm checking back over on Duncan. Or on DeSoto and Longview, and now it's like 23-7. I'm like, what happened there? And then I'm like doing some research into it, and then I'm pulling up Duncanville and Bridgeland. I'm like, okay, Duncanville's got that game, and then I start watching the DeSoto game, and I'm just like, what is happening here? So it worked out well. I think I got to get all of the analysis, all of what I wanted to see on a Saturday while you were out in the rain, cold. I got to just sit there with my little remote control being like, oh, that's the professor. Work smarter, not harder, Lizzie.
And I'm out there working harder and not seeing smart football at all. And we haven't even mentioned the Geyer South Lake game where, what was it? It was one guy returning 2 block punts for touchdowns. When's the last time that's happened? I haven't been to a game where it's been 2 block punts, but I've never been to a game where there's 2 block punts and the same guy returns them both for 6. So that was a little bit craziness there as well. But we've made it to, and you know what? Since you won't do it, I'll do it. Congratulations to Fort Worth All Saints and Argyle Liberty Christian and Dallas Christian for winning their TAPS championships. They all deserved it. And I'm telling you now, it's a grooming method here for your Cowboys. We'll revisit this in, let's say, 6 years when they announce Jason Witten as their head football coach. It's going to be steps. He's got to wait for his sons to graduate. Then he's got to show him he can do it at the college level. But you know the Joneses are foaming at the mouth to get him in there. So we'll just bide our time, and we're wearing polished veterans of this podcast stuff. And you'll be like, I can't remember too well because I'm old, but I think you said something about Witten being the head coach. Well, this is the one y'all need to mark. I'm going to mark it right now. Mark.
I'll give you a little bit of inside my brain analysis here that's actually TAPS related. So our church ball friends are going to be really enthralled in our first segment of our podcast because I felt a pretty good view because Gossett in our Pick'em challenge he put the 5 TAPS States games on there, so I had to figure I got to do a little bit of research here, and I felt good about 4 of the 5. I felt good about all of them except for Holy Cross and Dallas Christian. So I mean I went on a deep dive. I was researching Holy Cross. I was researching their history, who they beat, how they beat them. Then I was researching Dallas Christian. I was researching their game last year. I was researching how much they're bringing back from each element of it. And everything I read leaned to picking Holy Cross. Everything I read. But then I saw an interview with Luke Carney, and I'm like, I can't bet against this kid. This kid is a champion. This kid will not let me down. This kid is going to single-handedly, like Riley Dodge in the 90s, he's going to take him to a state championship. So I ignored all of my analysis, and I voted on Luke Carney. And you know who's number 1 in Pick'em now in the Gossett? Be me.
That's your boy. He's back on top. Luke Carney, the only negative thing you can say about him is he chose to go to Syracuse. Boy, what a mistake. Thank God for the transfer portal. But you're right. He not only did it for you with his arm, he made the game-winning interception too. So congrats to him. And if you guys saw the show, we ran a story on him last week. It was He's a
I
great
listen to him.
situationist.
I'm telling you, like I listen to that stuff. I don't watch the game highlights, but your packages, your features. I'm at the games. We don't need to see the
There
games
you go.
again. But
You don't
but
need to see
the great features that you guys do, like pie eating contests and Luke Carney,
it.
and the deep dives that
Car-
Ward and your crew do to make our television lives great on Sunday morning. I'm there, Ward. I'm there. So Luke Carney, thank you for taking me to the promised land and ignoring all these idiots on Gossett Pick'em, who is like Holy Cross, best team ever, San Antonio 13-0. Don't pick against Luke Carney.
don't listen to him. I didn't either,
And tell
but I
Dean to
did
mark
pick
that and put that on social media because that's
mark
the
it.
truth. I that's some
Mark it.
gospel spitting right there for church ball. I'm going to
Mark
church
it.
with that with Luke
There you
Carney.
go. He's talking some serious taps right here. I like it. Now we're going to go into what I like to call the brackets. Let's talk about what we have left here. We got 6A Division One, and we have got ourselves a sweet rematch in our town. We got North Shore taking on North Shore, one of the few teams last week that played a team for the second time and actually beat them. A lot of teams that we're going to talk about, they weren't so lucky. The second time around did not work out for them. But North Shore did work out as they just pounded into Atascocita. I picked Atascocita in the regular season. They let me down there. I wasn't going to do it twice. And it's just, I mean, if this doesn't talk about your Ric Flair syndrome, nothing will, because they can't get past it, man. It's now 10 in a row they lost to that team. And they're taking on the Austin Westlake, and because of the coin flip situation of last year, Westlake's coming into town to play very close to Galena Park. They're playing Katy. I see North Shore going back to the state title, and then I'm going to let you do your expert analysis on the North Crowley Duncanville game, because after they lost to Duncanville last year, they did everything we wanted them to do. They toughened up their schedule. They found themselves a sweet receiver that nobody talked about, and now everybody's talking about. They've beaten everybody. They only had one really tough game, and that was a little bit with Lancaster, and they kind of stomped out a lot of other people. Talk to me about this game and what you see can happen the second time around here.
North Crowley has definitely gotten better from last year. There's no doubt about that. Like you said, we gave them the blueprint, and Coach Gates listens to our podcast. He's like, okay, Diggs and Wizzy, those two average plain guys over there are telling me what to do, so I better listen to those guys. And now they're really smart and they understand more. They took our game plan and they threw it up in the trash and said, this is what we need to do, 817 style, and they started doing that. This is a really tough matchup for North Crowley. For me, on just kind of face value, looking at the games, the calibrations, the players, and the matchups, I would say Duncanville is about a 7-point favorite. However, one thing I like about North Crowley is, and I've mentioned it several times on this podcast, it's one of my talking points on the dump, is that sweet offensive coordinator they got, the guru of analytics, Eli Reinhardt. And I think he will find a touchdown in there. I think he'll find a trick play. I think he'll find a weakness in the Duncanville secondary, or some kind of gadget play. Remember that Coppell play where they did the double? He's going to
Yeah,
find something. So now I think we got a pure 50-50 game. But when you got a pure 50-50 game, I think I always take the best player on the field. That's Keelan Russell. So I'm going to take Duncanville, but I think it is going to be an absolute dogfight. 48 minutes of pain, back and forth, and all of the talking points, all of the cliches, turnovers, penalties, and whatnot. That's all going to come to roost because it is truly a pure 50-50 game at this point. North Crowley wins this game, I would not be surprised. Duncanville wins this game, I would not be surprised. The only thing I would be surprised about is a blowout at this point, because I think North
yeah,
Crowley has closed the gap, and I think they've made it to where they are the same league as Duncanville.
yeah. I was going to say the same thing. If we see a blowout, I first of all be severely disappointed, but I would be completely shocked as well because these two teams measure up nicely. They got a decent time where I don't think the sun. Well, 3 o'clock. I haven't checked the weather yet. God help me if we got another rainy weekend. I don't even know if we do or not. I can't deal with it shooting wise, and I don't know how it's going to mess up with the offense. But Allen didn't give North Crowley much of anything. To me, it looked like from the highlights I saw, Duncanville was just kind of playing with their food against Bridgeland until they finally got busy down the stretch there. Do you have any opinions about the lower half of this bracket?
I actually, since we're doing a podcast and I'm learning from you because I pretty much ignore all things Houston, when you watched the North Shore cut up the North Shore and Atascocita highlights, did you see anything unique, extra? Something this North Shore. I mean, they pummeled a state ranked top five area
Yeah,
team much more than even Duncanville did on Bridgeland. So, what elements did you see, if any, that really said? I mean, did Atascocita just roll over and say we can't play with you? We're sorry, we're out of here, or was North Shore just getting to that next level and like transforming and putting their
that's
matrix
exactly what
in
it
and
is.
going?
That's exactly what it is. They're next level, and when you have a 4 year starter at quarterback who his main knock was sometimes he I don't even want to say it gets bored, but sometimes he tries to make the impossible throw, and which is we talked about it with the Crowley I think it was 3 to 5 interception game where they still ended up winning the game. When he does stuff like that, that's when people get worried. But in the postseason, he hasn't done that at all. His legs, his arm, he's got a superstar receiver out there now. And then when you have DBs like Devin Sanchez and Charles Ross on the as edge rusher, their defense is playing at another level. This is a team that, man, if we actually do see, because I'm not a big fan of seeing games over and over again, but if we see North Shore and Duncanville again, I'm glad it's the nightcap because that's going to be an exciting game. And if it's North Shore or North Crowley, it's also going to be an exciting game. They're playing at a different level right now. After the first Atascocita game where they needed a miracle catch and then a touchdown 5 seconds left to win, I was ready to go Atascocita again. But you seen how they did the first three games of the playoffs. They're just manhandling these squads, and I can't getting a home game against Westlake. I feel like that's another big victory for the Mustangs.
Just using DFW calibration because that's all I can do as our DFW insider. Westlake barely beat Lake Travis. I mean, it was a game where it really wasn't in doubt, but 24-17. It was a one-score game. Lake Travis and Rockwall struggled. So I'm looking at that as a calibration. Westlake played Prosper earlier in the year. Prosper was up on him, in second half. Westlake shut him down, but it wasn't a blowout. They kind of beat him like Allen beat him. And so
Right.
I'm seeing a team that's kind of in that Allen tier, which, as we learned with North Crowley, is a tier below the Duncanville, North Shore, North Crowley
That's
tier.
a,
So I think, especially on the road, Westlake's going to play hard. They're going to be there. They're going to be disciplined. But I still think North Shore is probably two scores better at the least.
yeah. And the Atascocita beat Westlake on the road, and we just saw North Shore beat them twice this year. So there you have it, there, man. Let's go on to Division Two because this is a bit of a shocker to see Longview in there. But Coach King is now, I believe they told me 3-0 against Coach Mathis as he beat him twice when Mathis was at Marshall. And then he really beat him this week. South Lake Carroll, they have some special teams things to get cleared up, but they're in there. And then Summer Creek, as we talked about, their whole side of the bracket just opened up for them. They're not going to get much in this Vandergrift game either. It's a nightcap at Baylor. I'll be there. I won't be shooting it, but I'll be there to at least watch it, and maybe I'll get a nice little insight for us when we talk about Summer Creek against whoever they wind up playing. But that's where I want you to come in to tell me about what you think about the South Lake Longview game, because when I was there, from the highlights I'd already seen of Boosie, Washington, I saw a lot of jet sweeps and using that speed in the jet sweeps, but he busted it up the middle 4 or 5 times for big gains against. I'm guessing he can run it anywhere. The key thing is here, and we didn't have to see it against DeSoto because he ran for 305 touchdowns. I don't think that quarterback can pass all that well. I don't think he's an elite. He's definitely not an elite passer. He's a serviceable passer. I don't know if he threw more than 2-3 passes against DeSoto, but by the time it was 30-7 at one point, when are you going to throw the ball? So maybe that's a part. If they can find a way to shut Washington down, maybe that's where South Lake gets their lead, and then playing ahead might be the way to do it on this team. It's certainly DeSoto couldn't play ahead, that's for sure.
Well, before we go to where we're going, let's talk a little bit about where we've been because I know you're on a sabbatical from Twitter, but if you popped on every now and then, if you got on the guest mode, you could probably see that the East Texas Twitterverse was none too happy with us, and we had our podcast
Oh
clip,
no.
we had all kinds of elements of us picking me picking a steamroll of DeSoto steamrolling Longview, and how I disrespected the Lobo Nation by saying that Longview could not be competitive, and then this game ends up being 50-14. So just a couple of things I want to talk about with this, and I know you're not an Instagram guy either. This is good for your mental health, by the way, Ward. That all these
Squirrels
things
out.
I'm saying you're not doing, you're promoting your own mental health, and I like that, Ward. That's good. But there was a clip that was widely circulated from the DeSoto players in the sideline, waiting for the game, like basically shirtless. They all have their
Yeah, they're all shirtless.
doing the sexy red get it sexy dance. And
Right.
like this, they're getting ready for the game. And I mean, here's this video of 10 seconds, just all these strong men just going sexy red. I don't follow this stuff. In fact, I asked my kids, 14-year-old twin girls, have you heard of it? And they knew exactly. They started singing it. Like this is a TikTok trend. So DeSoto was basically doing a viral
Mm.
TikTok trend to kind of get themselves hyped up for the game. And when you're doing that, how focused are you? Do you think Longview? Do you think Southlake are in their little tunnels getting ready for the game, thinking about a TikTok trend and getting a video ready for that? First,
No.
pretty big sign for me that happened. And then you just had an absolute thralling. For me, this is one of the biggest upsets. And Ward, you're really good. Your brain is very historical. You think like this. I can't think of many more upsets like this. That wasn't just okay. I think a team is going to win by 28 and they lose by 3 or they lose by 7 or something happens. Where you just had a complete reversal of fortune. If you look at what DeSoto and Longview had done all year, you take their body of work. Longview was beating Royce City like that. That's how you had to drop to
Mm-hmm.
get a Longview kind of a win like that. Whereas DeSoto was beating Lancaster like that. And then
Yeah.
and now we've got Longview beating DeSoto like that after they barely got by Lancaster. I don't know
Right.
historically when you've seen this big of an upset, a 50 to 60 point swing, and it just wasn't me. I tried to find somebody objective who was outside of Longview who picked Longview to win. I didn't find it. It
There's
wasn't
people.
just me. Like I looked, it was everybody picking DeSoto. Gaza didn't even put it on the pick 'em because he's like, that's going to go 20-0. I'm not. Why put it on there? So congratulations to Longview. Congratulate. I mean, no doubt. I'm taking accountability. You were right. I was wrong. But again, I think it's important to realize that this was a historically
Right.
unprecedented upset. You can't think of it. Can you think of the last time
I
where
can't. Not a point spread like that. I mean, when you first said a major upset like that, I was thinking when Rowlett beat Allen that one time in the first round of playoffs, but they didn't beat the pants off him.
right.
They didn't gut punch him like he just got a second notice on a bill that you ain't paid. That's the kind of gut punch they got. And I was there live, so I mean, if Lobo Nation's coming after us, that's fine. But I finally got to see live of what everybody's talking about, and man, Boosie against Booby, because Booby Feaster didn't get but 2 passes thrown his way. That was another interesting thing. But he yanked Keldon Ryan in the first quarter or in the second quarter in a drive, which I thought was weird because it was only 23-7. Now when he threw the interception right to the Lobo player for a touchdown, and which pretty much ended the game, I could understand why he got yanked in. But he had been talking about Coach Math's been talking about Keldon Ryan the whole season about this is the guy I want to go to war with, all this other kind of stuff to me, and then he got pulled out of there. It was only 23-7. He did throw that nice touchdown to Dalen Singleton, but after that pick six, one of the players was sitting up against the wall, helmet off, away from the team. It was I don't want to say they quit, but they were certainly humiliated and completely down and didn't know how to recover from something like that. So kudos to Longview. Like you said, they probably shouldn't even have been this far because Lancaster had him on the ropes and they gave it back to him, and the Lobos jumped all over it, took it for a win, and now they've run this thing into the state semifinals. They're playing a tough Southlake team, but we talked about how Southlake's down 2 running backs. Talk about the game in general. I mean, after we've gone through the Longview part of things, what does Southlake have to do to kind of win this thing?
When I think of the Lancaster and Longview game, I think of how Longview and Boozy and all that got shut down because Lancaster had such a good defensive line. I mean, that was really one of the strengths of Lancaster, and they were able to keep it to 3 to 5 yards. I mean, other than one play in overtime that busted out for 16 yards, it was literally the 3 and 4 yards in a cloud of dust. And like you said, the Longview quarterback, he was running for his life, and he was trying to take advantage of the fact that Lancaster's uh, linebackers are not good, so trying to find those little mid-level passes, those short passes, because you don't want to go one-on-one with the Lancaster DBs because they were really good as well. It's just their linebackers that were a little bit weak. And then I think about Southlake, and they got Jack Van Dorselier who likes to play on the defensive line. They work on the tight end. So Southlake's got a pretty good defensive line too. I kind of think of like them in the same mold as Marcus is all. That's kind of like a defensive line is kind of a given. They may not they'll get some D1 guys in there, an RJ Maryland who can play tight end and DT at some point, Van Dorselier, but they're not known for having just D1 athletes, but they're all really really good high school football players. So I think Longview is going to have a problem running on Southlake. And then it's just going to set up, can Longview's quarterback take advantage of the linebackers? Can they go deep? Because I would say the big weakness for Southlake is their secondary. You're going to have to go deep on them. But if their offensive line versus their defensive line is bad and you make Southlake become the tacklers, then you get into a shootout. But Southlake has now shown 3 times that they can play and win a shootout. So I think either way you go, I got to go with Southlake. And I think we can go anywhere from Southlake mid-range to a Southlake blowout. But all of and I know Riley Dodge is telling me, shut off the camera. I don't need Longview having any more emotional support, on there. But this is still, other than one game, a Longview team that beat 3 fourth-place teams, not convincingly.
Right.
I mean, Southlake has gone through a tough Hebron team, a very, very talented Denton Geyer team that's kind of on par with DeSoto as far as talent goes. Still had a lot of bad things happen to them and still won that game by 2 scores. This is the Dragons Time of Year award. Give me Southlake.
They look pretty good, and on the bottom end here, Summer Creek is just as much as they're enjoying their road right now, they had to look up at that Longview win and be pissed off because they want their get back. I mean, they're happy that Longview stomped them out, but they wanted their get back because Longview had beat the pants off of DeSoto, but they didn't do it so the whole nation can see it and keep it up to the point where there's 70 points hanging on that board. They wanted that get back, but this is a team that's on a mission here, and they will be in a state final game. That's pretty much a given, as much as givens go. And it's going to be Summer Creek against one of these two, and they need to have a test before they get there, and there's not going to be a test. They just kind of ease through these playoffs. Do you have any insight on Vandergrift? What do you know about them?
Well, this is a
Anything?
team that's been here. I mean, they've made it to the regional finals, state semifinals. Even playing in AT&T, I think a couple of years ago. So it's a team. I remember those Vandergrift Vipers. You get the little snakes and things like that. So this is a team that is accustomed to being this far in. It's not quite the powerhouse of Lake Travis and Austin Westlake, but just a tier below. I think if we're doing Austin area top 10, they're probably your third or fourth best team. Maybe even better than Lake Travis. Again, I don't cover that area. But for me, and this kind of gets to what you said, Ward. I think Summer Creek, I'll pick them. Is Summer Creek now the de facto favorite for state?
They very well could be. I mean, they
They asked if
shelved
they
that
could
game
be
plan.
asked if they are, Ward. Are they?
All right, they are. I'm
Okay.
going to say they are because they shelved that game plan from last year, which was just give it to Lloyd Avant and let him run because he's such a workhorse. They're like, daggone all that stuff. Let's now pass and use our defense more, which is they turned Blake Thomas into a useful mobile quarterback. He used to just hand it off and be done with it, but now he's turned into a star over there, and their defense is like second to none. They're turning the ball over like nobody's business. So, all right, let's move on, man. 5A Division One. Let's talk about those Ryan Raiders. They absolutely flipped the script on Aledo. They let Aledo get on top of them first, and they came back. Maybe not as dramatically, but they did come back with the 3 late touchdowns and win that game. Highland Park did their thing against Lone Star. On the back end, it was a terrific game between Angleton and LaPorte, with Angleton coming. They actually came back to win. another rematch game where LaPorte beat him in the regular season, but Angleton got him here. And then Smithson's Valley took care of Flower Bluff, and they've moved on. That's a familiar name for everybody. Uh, I'll actually be at the Angleton Smithson Valley game for the other side of this deal, where I'm shooting for Houston as well. You tell me. Let's first talk about this top matchup here with Highland Park and Ryan. Where you think this game could go? Could this is it a 7-point game, or what are we looking at?
I've been asked, criticized, just very much like the Longview and DeSoto thing, because I've been hard on Ryan. I've been hard on Ryan,
I
the
do know
coaching
that.
staff, and things to that element to explain myself. If Coach Hennigan is just the worst, and 9 out of 10 times they're going to get out coached and this and that, how could Denton Ryan win? And I got to eat my crow on it. For Denton Ryan to beat Aledo and beat them the way they did is beyond what I thought was going to happen. And you got to credit the culture. You got to credit the coaching staff. You got to credit the kids. You got to credit the community. This was a community win that they ignored blowhards like me. They said, we got to do what we're going to do. You trust in us. You trust in our coaches. You're going to win. They did that and they won. They proved me wrong. So I don't have a defense for it. They did everything I didn't think they could do and they did it. And what can I say except I'm a moron? I mean, they did what I didn't think they could do. That being said, for all the exact reasons I didn't think they could beat Aledo, I don't think they could beat Highland Park. So I'm going to kind of double down on this. Now, to be clear, when I was watching the Highland Park Lone Star game, it was my first time seeing Highland Park since that scrimmage 15 weeks ago against Plano East at Kimbrough Stadium, where I got my first look into Highland Park. I've mentioned this on Twitter. I felt completely demoralized. I was like, Plano East is horrible this year, Ward. I mean, Highland Park just gave us the business. Their defense looked like it was already in playoff form. We couldn't do anything on it. And then all of a sudden, it looked like Highland Park is kind of a favorite to potentially win state or Denton Ryan, depending on who wins that game. And Highland Park is just, cooking with gas and running it up. But Highland Park made a lot of mistakes in that game against Lone Star. There were 2 red zone turnovers. You can't be throwing in touchdowns and you can't be throwing touchdowns in the end zone to the other team. They had a punt return for a touchdown. So you got to clean that stuff up. If they clean that stuff up, I think they are definitely good enough to beat Denton Ryan. Den Ryan was the beneficiary of 2 fourth-quarter turnovers, and we kind of talked about that's Aledo's bugaboo. They didn't get the 3 turnovers like I talked about, but they definitely had 2 pivotal fourth-quarter turnovers, which Denton Ryan should be credited for that. It's not like just Aledo dropped the ball or something. And the Denton Ryan play that broke that to a 21-18 game was just a highlight reel. No business catching that into triple coverage, and then he slips through the coverage and goes to the end zone. Credit to Denton Ryan. They're going to need another performance like that, but I don't think Highland Park is going to give up the 21 to 28 to 35 points that Denton Ryan, that Aledo gave up to them. So then if you're playing in the 20s and 30s, I really like Highland Park to get that.
Well, I certainly agree with most of what you said there. Talk about Buck Randall since you saw him live. Obviously, you talk about those turnovers, but he's the only quarterback that started as a sophomore there since Matt Stafford. He's been playing at the top level. Maybe you make do with some of the interceptions because he's so young, but he's making the plays they're asking him to make. Can he do it against the defense with Dillon, Arkansas, and the rest of those big guys, and then Warmate boys that'll just pound at you? And I feel like the Denton Ryan offensive line has come together to the point where maybe they weren't all on the same page the game I went to, which was the Timberview game, because they weren't getting much yardage and it seemed the plays were being blown up left and right. But Ty Hager and the rest of them are playing at a top level here. But talk to me about what you saw from Buck Randall. I just like saying the name, by the way.
To be honest, in that one performance, in that one game, I mean, I'm not thinking he's a little Matthew Stafford or anything. He's a good, serviceable high school quarterback who is very good and has a potential and a ceiling to get good. The decision making wasn't always great. I really didn't like how he scrambles, like just when he scrambles. A lot of quarterbacks get better when they get out of the pocket. It's like they get the strength, they get the momentum, they start to get the adrenaline flowing. But with him, the arm angle got a little bit wonky when he he was on the run. It's like he's a better pocket passer when he's just able to do that. That being said, when he scrambled and actually ran and quit throwing it, he did great at scrambling game. Kind of like a Josh Allen scrambler to give or Jalen Hurts just doesn't really fear contact, and it's a great scrambler, but little bit concerned with his mechanics and throwing on the run. A little bit concerned about when he gets flustered, and then Ryan's going to fluster him. So he's going to have. I think they're going to deal with that in practice because a couple of times that Buck Randall got flustered and it's like I got to make a play. It's third down in goal. That's where he got in trouble. So definitely some opportunities for improvement, but I can see why a lot of people like him and are excited about him. And but again, sophomore in a defense like that's I think a checkbox for Denton Ryan more than it is a checkbox for Highland Park. What I think is the checkbox for Highland Park is their offensive line, their defensive line. They're going to be able to be as physical with Denton Ryan, and the receivers I think are going to be able to do things in the middle of the Denton Ryan defense that I don't think Aledo could consistently do because of just their strengths. Aledo's strengths aren't necessarily this year are their receivers. I think it's their running backs and getting in space with some of their players. So maybe not a glowing review of a very good player, but again, that was a 1 game sample, and I think that he's gonna have a chance to get better. He's got 2 more years, but Denton Ryan is going to put pressure on him. I know the defensive coordinator over there saw what I saw and is going to try to rattle him, because if you rattle him and force him to make throws on the run, that's when he wasn't doing well, and Denton Ryan can do that. So can Randy Allen settle him down and kind of play into that, knowing, okay, this is what they're going to do to try to counteract what they saw on tape. This is what we're going to do to like a double counter back. And I think that Highland Park has been excellent at that. And I mentioned this on the show a couple of weeks ago. Highland Park is going to be one of the most prepared defenses you see. They know your play so well. They know what you're playing. They know what you're running,
Yeah.
and can Denton Ryan execute that, knowing that Highland Park knows what you're about to do, or can Denton Ryan scheme enough and change enough to where they don't know? And I don't necessarily have confidence that they're going to be able to come up with a lot of key plays like that to where they could do that. Now, of course, they could come in there and start Braden Mussett and completely mess them up. That's about the only thing that I think they could do to completely just change the architecture of the situation.
It does feel like the de facto state championship too. I don't
Kind of
think the
does.
bottom half has a chance to do it. And since we won't have this on by the time if Denton Ryan does win, it really worked out for Coach Hennigan again. If they win and go to the state championship, he was worried because Memphis didn't make the playoffs. He's worried about maybe seeing his son's bowl game. Well, his son said, it's all right. We're going to go ahead and play on Tuesday night in Frisco. So work till 6 o'clock, drive over and see us play. I believe I don't even know who they're playing, but I know it's the Frisco Bowl on that Tuesday night, and then go back and plan for the state title game. So it's going to work out for the old Hennigan family. Bring Quinn with you. See old big brother playing. You don't need to work him to death. All right, you want to move on to Division II? Let's do it. Division II, a couple more rematches here. Well, the South Oak Cliff absolutely destroyed P&G. You remember we used to argue, oh my God, this game could have been in round 2. We were saying this by week 5. Now I kind of wish it was in round 2 so we could get that thing out the way as they blow them out, and then they can kind of roll into Argyle, because they weren't even tested for an Argyle team, which I think will be a sweet battle in the trenches. I think both of their offensive lines are strong, and the offensive line versus defensive line is a strong game right there. Bottom half, our guys at Randall had a little bit of an issue with Iowa Colony, but it was the second time they played them, so you got to expect some stuff, and they made a fumble happen in overtime to win that game. They move on. They're playing Bernie. That's another game I'll be at. There seem to be the Houston kids like to play up here at Waco, up in Baylor, so I'll be there the whole weekend taking a look at that one. I think Randall wins that one. But I want to hear your opinion on the game over there at SMU, the Sock Argyle game.
You know, every time I say that this is going to be a little bit disrespectful, it probably is a little bit disrespectful.
If you
But
start off by that, that's going to be disrespectful if you start
the,
that way. So
the way my
just be ready
brain
for
is
that.
kind of viewing this game is the same way I viewed Duncanville and North Crowley last year. I mean, you've got Argyle coming in. They've done everything right. But I'm thinking about Argyle. They lost to Frisco Lone Star. I mean, that's kind of Argyle's ceiling. We already saw that in week 1. That's about where they're at. And their pathway, they played a lot of good teams, but no elite teams and no great teams. And the thing that I think about Argyle, when they're thinking about their non-district schedule and challenging themselves, Midlothian Heritage and who they play the first week? Uh,
Well, they played Lone Star the first week.
no,
You
I'm
mean this
sorry.
third
I just
week?
said that and then I forgot about it. That's
Oh,
not
okay.
state championship mindset. That's not pulling off a really good team and saying, let's give ourselves a challenge. Let's test ourselves. It's just, we're a really good team. Let's play some really good teams. South Oak Cliff is an elite team. South Oak Cliff is saying, let's get Duncanville, let's get Longview, let's get North Shore, all teams still playing in the state semifinals. We always say, Ward, there's levels to this. And South Oak Cliff is just on a different level. I think they're going to blow them out. Just like Argyle blew out Lovejoy and just like they blew out PNG, it's just everybody down the road for South Oak Cliff is a little bit better than South Oak Cliff or a little bit better than Argyle. You put that into the blender, you put all that coaching in there, it's going to be a blowout. I don't have
Well,
much faith.
I think South Oak Cliff's going to win. I don't know about the blowout. They played 2 years ago. It was 14-6. And what do you want Argyle to do? They played Lone Star, who was a top 5 team in a classification up or division up. You want them to play. If they don't play Duncanville, then you don't want them to play. Then it's not good enough.
Aledo,
What's going
Highland
on
Park,
over there, Diggs? They're doing
Aledo,
the best
Highland
they can
Park.
do.
I mean, you can go up. You can play a little higher.
Aledo and Highland Park were okay 1-2, and then they ended up playing 3 in Lone
They played
Star, which is
five or six. Like Lone Star,
uh,
well, Lone Star lost to
you
Wakeland.
but you're
Ward. Lone
you're
Star
you're
lost to Wakeland. I mean,
you're
that's
saying
where
that
they were
they
at.
didn't know they were going to lose to Wakeland at the beginning of the season. That was a
I did
quality
know that,
team
but I
going into the
didn't
beginning
think
of the
they were
season.
like a top 3 area state championship threat team. I thought they were going to be like Argyle, a very good team, but not an elite team. South Oak
Okay,
Cliff is an elite team,
all right.
and
In the
South Oak
14 to
Cliff.
6 game, we're going to put that on the fog and the weather. That's why it was 14-6. Otherwise, Sock would have beat them by how much the first time they played? They had 2021, I believe it was, 2 playoffs ago.
I mean, Argyle's defense, like, just look at the game against Lone Star. I mean, that is your this. That's kind of their ceiling. They played a really good game, but it was just a little like they were able to get some offensive things going. They weren't able to stop Lone Star, in the fourth quarter. South Oak Cliff should be able to score 35-42. And now you look at South Oak Cliff; their defense hasn't given up 14 in a while since Longview. So how's Argyle going to generate that? I think it's just one of those games that the mismatches are going to get out of hand. But whether I'm wrong and South Oak Cliff only wins that game by 2 scores or they win it by 4 to 5 scores, I think they're a solid favorite.
You think they're still going to win? Yeah, I think they're going to win too. I agree with that. I mean, obviously they gave up little points after Longview because they're playing Adamson and and Siegelville or whoever. Of course, they're only give up a little bit. I'm glad they're done with the posts yesterday. As far as what are y'all going to say now? We took care of PNG. We need to go ahead and put that PNG thing behind us. Let's not make that the Super Bowl. But I know Coach Todd's not going to do that. That game's done with. You destroyed them. Let's keep on going. I think, like I said, I think Randall wins the next one. It should be an interesting final if it's Randall against Sock. But I think Randall's a little. We'll talk about that next week. But probably too young to hang with Sock right now at this point. But it's a good start for them to get in there. Let's just hope it's not like Summer Creek who gets in their first one and then watches 70 million points thrown up on them. All right, 4A Division One. What happened to Stephenville? We were
I
supposed to
told
see
you.
Stephenville
I
and
told
Salina.
you what was
You did
happening.
tell me that, but I didn't listen to you because the Longview people told me you don't know nothing. So I was listening to Longview people who said you didn't know anything. And then we're down on the bottom half. We got Kilgore winning that East Texas matchup against Chapel Hill. Lavernia got a second chance at Bay City, and they got their revenge and beat them. I believe one of our counterparts was told he didn't know anything about small schools because Lavernia won. Our guy Step was told he was nothing. The Vernon people gave him the treatment that Longview gave you. I tell you what, both of these guys, Diggs and Step, 85% in the prediction, but man, that 15%, they will rip your head off and hold it on a stick like they do at McKinney games and just show you what you are. You're nothing. I think you're something, Diggs. You're something.
Thank
Now
you.
tell me about West Plains and Salina because Salina played around the first half and then they just stuck it to them. They
You know,
stuck it.
they did it, and I feel like you look at what West Plains did, and they're a team that wins these kind of shootout games, kind of like kind of what Salina's already seen with Alvarado and Aubrey and Panther Creek, except they absolutely demolished Panther Creek. So I believe Salina is going to absolutely demolish West Plains. I think that Salina is just on a different level, too much talent. We've been talking about it. when I saw the two pack of the way that West Plains ended up beating Lampasas or Brownwood or whoever else was in their district, at the same time that Stephenville only beat Canyon Randall by a touchdown, I was like, you got a lot of this work because this is not calibrating in a way for Stephenville. But still, I trusted Stephenville because the name Stephenville holds credibility for me. But Salina, to me, I thought I would have picked Salina to beat Stephenville by 21. So now you got West Plains coming in there who pulled the upset. I think West Plains is just going to be happy to be here, and I think Salina's probably going to win. It may take till the second half, but I think Salina's going to win big.
But I can't give you credit for West Plains. We can't give credit to ones you get right. But I tell you what, if you get something wrong, I'm gonna be on you. I'm gonna be on you. Yeah, you said that about West Plains. Who cares? You got that one right. But the ones you got wrong, Dixie, boy, were you wrong, and I didn't like it. All right, what do you think about Kilgore and Lavernia? Or do you
I
have
don't
any
know
thoughts
anything
on
about
that game?
Lavernia. Like, where is Lavernia anyway?
Lavernia's down in the San Antonio type area. That's all I know. That's pretty smart of you, Wizzy, since they're Region 4, you big dummy. Of course they're down in that area.
Kilgore is a
But
really
that's where
good
they
team.
are.
I mean, the fact that Kilgore beat Tyler Chapel Hill the way they did twice, and last week was the minefield for playing the teams twice, and not
Yeah,
only to
yep.
beat them the way they did, but beat them by 24. And we saw that usually when Region 3 and Region 4 and 4A Division 1, when you have these kind of teams playing each other, Chapel Hill won this game last year, against the Region 4 team. So I think Kilgore is probably a two-score favorite, not needing to know anything about Lavernia, just needing to know about Kilgore. And for me, as a kind of, I don't cover the state, certainly, but as a connoisseur of high school football, a Kilgore Salina matchup is nice.
Yeah.
That's a
It
nice
sounds
matchup.
like two. It sounds you mentioned this about West Plains. It does sound like two teams that are happy to be 5 rounds in deep in the playoffs. I know Lavernia is ecstatic. Uh, I don't know if either one of them can turn them into wins, but I've been riding with Salina, Randall, and Columbus, who we'll talk about a little bit later. I've been riding with them the whole year, so I'm not jumping off now, man. Plus, I would never jump off Salina because Coach Elliott will put me in a headlock, and then I'll never be able to breathe again. It'd be terrible. 4A Division Two rematch. Another rematch that flipped. Gosh dang it, Brock gave up 38 the first time, and Graham barely got 10 this time. I mean, that's playoff
Y'all
Brock
were
for you.
that was a country game, a country roads game, and y'all were just all like, Brock is the worst team ever. And I mean, I'm hearing that stuff from y'all. Like y'all were seeing it with your eyes. I heard some. I can't tell you who said it because not because I wouldn't attribute it to him because I'm a jerk and I would attribute it to him. But I heard it was like watching a varsity team play a JV team when it was Brock against Graham. Like it was just a
Ooh,
mismatch. And then what happens? A nice triple overtime thriller, a nice 2 point conversion to win it. Brock takes care of business. Now, if you remember, Ward, I used to do a little show, a little side show called the District
yeah.
43A Report, and then
Mm-hmm.
realignment blew it all up, and now we still got two District 43A Report teams that we're going to be talking about. So, I've got a little bit of insight into these teams still. Got some connections and friends, even though the District 43A Report, everybody went to their own corners and broke up. So I'm not surprised that Brock won that game because this is a very much like Longview. It's a proud tradition. It's a team that is really hard to beat in the playoffs. But Carthage is like kind of like Argyle and South Oak Cliff. Carthage is just at that next level. You got a quarterback's kid, a coach's son with a quarterback, and it's Surratt, and it's Carthage.
Surratt.
Oh,
What was the stat on Surratt? He's got 9 state titles and only 8 playoff losses. That's miraculous. That's unbelievable. And
something like
that's what he's
that.
got going on. Something like that.
And his kid's
And
got
by the way,
7 touchdowns a game, and it's gonna be hard sledding for Brock. I think Carthage will be a big favorite in that game.
yeah, and unlike
About
4A
as
Division
big as
One, it's
DeSoto should have been on Longview, but you saw what happened there, Ward.
yeah, you're gonna get cursed at again. You better watch yourself. 4A Division One, we talked about 2 teams that were just happy to be here. We got nothing but big names on this side. 4A Division Two. I got to see the highlights of the Waco La Vega Sealy game. Their offense was on a whole crazy kind of level. Had a running back run for 270-yard touchdowns. I'm. It could be a sweet La Vega versus Carthage matchup. Yeah, but like I said, if Carthage gets in the title game, it's hard to deny them. They like wearing rings over there. So I think La Vega
And
wins.
again,
Go ahead.
We're talking about blue bloods, Ward.
Blue
Wimberley and
Bloods.
La Vega are kind of your blue bloods over here. La Vega, we got to see them because I know you this part of your anger is that when we had La Vega in our rankings last year with China
Yeah.
Spring and Stephenville in that
Yeah.
district over there, so we got to be a little bit close with La Vega. They drop a class, and this is where things kind of open up. But Wimberley, again, I mean, this is like one of those specially placed teams in UIL to get here, and kind of like Liberty Hill was, and I think Wimberley knows how to win these games, and they find a way to get there. So I'm going to take a Wimberley and Carthage state final game.
Mm.
Which, as far as Blue Bloods go, I know you'll have no interest in it from for either IHSS franchises, but it's still a nice game.
It's still a nice game. Well, I'm still going with La Vega, so there you go. 3A Division One, DFW's own Malakoff. I've been saying this for years. With who? Mike Jones. Against Paradise, right up here at the Star. I'll finally get to see my boys from Malakoff that I've been covering hard for a couple of years now. Right here in our hometown against, at the Star. They beat Brock last time they were here, so they're looking to take down Paradise. Other side, old Aunt Edna's taking on Columbus. That should be that's at Rice. That should be a offensive bonanza. Columbus shook off some injuries this year, but I've been riding with them ever since, and they got past the Nemesis Franklin. And here we go. They're going to take on old Aunt Edna.
So let me ask you,
Those
Ward.
Cowboys.
You're going to Paradise versus Malakoff.
Yes.
I'm going to Paradise versus Malakoff.
Yes.
So that means we've got 2 tickets to
2 tickets.
paradise. Won't you pack my bags and leave tonight? I set
2
that up,
credentials
Ward.
for
I set it
my
up.
man.
What?
2 credentials pending for Paradise. Pending. I
Pending.
don't know. All right, what do you think about that game, Mr. Paradise?
The way
Paradise
Malakoff
lost.
beat Liberty Ilo, sorry, Paradise. I think almost Paradise is what we're going to be singing after that, because there's going to be Paradise by the dashboard light. Malakoff, I think, is going to take it to the state finals. They are play. I picked Liberty Ilo last week. I was convinced on an East Texas podcast. I got the hard sell on why Liberty Ilo was going to beat Malakoff. It all made sense, and then what happens? 35-0. They just completely
35.
shut it down, bullied them, just no chance. I love Paradise. I've been following them. Wise County Zone, DFW Zone, part of the District 4-3A report. Ran into Brock, ran into Whitesboro the last couple of years. So they made it to the third round, fourth round. Now they made it to the fifth round. But I just think Paradise, we got talk about levels. It's a cliche, like I've been talking about it. Malakoff is a state champion. Malakoff is a number one team in the state. Paradise is happy to be here. Paradise will play him tough. Malakoff is just next level.
But then when I ask you on Friday, you'll say Paradise lost. Little literature humor for the folks back, the old high class folks out there. Little rootin' tootin' up. Never mind. And I got Columbus in the bottom half, so that would be a sweet Columbus Malakoff matchup if it happens. Division 2 time. Uh-oh, he's got something to say about Division 1. Go ahead. Speak out.
I was just going to say that early, I'm going to take Columbus as well, but early, I look at a couple of computer polls. Aunt Edna is a computer favorite right now. I
Yeah,
can't
they
pick
have
against
a
Grayson Rigdon either, but I'm just saying it's interesting that Edna's style points have gotten them to be a computer favorite because I would have thought
yeah.
Columbus is a hardy favorite in this game. But early analysis says by the computer, it says take Edna. I'm not going to do it. I ignore the computer quite a bit, but I just thought I'd throw that out there for our consumers of the podcast.
They do put up some sweet offensive numbers. I ain't gonna lie to you. 3A Division 2, Gunter's back. They're taking on Wall. And on the bottom half, Tidehaven will be another Tidehaven Gunter final. That's for Diggs to tell us, man. He's 85% right all the time.
I'm 80%, 85% right 60% of the time, but 100% of the time, I'm 85% of the time right. Let me tell you, Ward, what I'm concerned about with Gunner. Gunner had a dominant victory over Holiday. It's the kind of victory that immediately gets my attention and says, okay, Gunter is there. But their best player, Peacock, tore his
That's right.
ACL in that game, and he's
He
gone.
sent me, Neil sent me a piece of video because he saw your dump talk about him. He said, "Oh, you're going to need this." And I was like, "I don't know what I'm going to need it for," but it was him on crutches, wandering off down the sidelines, and Neil's like, "Hey, Diggs may want this," and I was like, "All right, I'll take it. Do you want it, Diggs? I'll send it to you. Are you
I mean,
okay?" It just
and to me, I don't have a great analysis because Wall beat the donkey snot out of Canadian. I mean, the Canadian is a blue blood. It's a team that's been there.
yeah,
They beat them 49-3. That is an unprecedented kind of DeSoto, long view shellacking of DeSoto. It's very similar. I mean, as far as that, I know the difference was that DeSoto was a 4-point, 4 touchdown computer favorite. Wall was actually a slight computer favorite. So for them to beat Canadian the way they did, now you take Peacock out of Gunter, 3A Division II. We're not talking about a lot of depth. If there is a team with good depth, it's going to be Gunter. I've got this game on upset watch. I'm not prepared to pick because I got to do a little bit more research on this because I got to know how good Wall is and what their depth is because Gunter without Peacock, that's their best player. So, and that can be a two, that's like losing two of your best players in 3A Division II when you're playing two ways. So, man,
Baylor bound.
normally it's a no brainer to take Gunner. I mean, and I probably will end up doing that, but this sure looks like the chips are not going well for Gunner right now.
Yeah, Baylor bound. Colin Peacock, much like almost everybody in the DFW seems like they're going to Baylor this year. Good recruiting down here, Aranda.
And I'm gonna take
Tidehaven looks
Woodville
pretty
as
good.
well. The way Woodville beat
Yeah.
Dangerfield after Dangerfield beat New Diana. I'm sorry, Tidehaven. I'm going with Woodville. I don't know much about Woodville. I hear it's your kind of area with Jasper and
Yeah.
Colmus Neal and
Yep.
things like that. Are they a Houston area team for your purposes?
We take it. We take them.
You'll take
We
them.
claim them.
You won't take
Tidehaven.
Beaumont, but that's
Won't take
closer.
Beaumont.
That's close. Beaumont is closer to Houston than I'm sure this Woodville is. But Woodville, that's
Well,
Houston
I
area.
ain't taking Woodville. You can have Woodville. Tidehaven, I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
Woodville, you can do whatever you want with them. I don't care. Take them.
Well, I'm
But
taking
yeah,
Woodville.
we're
You
not
take
getting.
Tidehaven, and
I'll take Gunner and you take Wall. I'm not willing to say that yet,
I'm willing to.
Wizzy. All right,
That's
you will at some
that's the
point.
kind of deeper analysis that I got to do to stay at 85% because I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned.
Other, otherwise, you get dogged out. All right, you got to see Honeygrove lose to Joaquin. Ganedo's in there. That's a Victoria types team there, but they're playing great on the offensive side of the ball for sure. Hamilton against Stanford. Hamilton, I got to see off Broadway, but I haven't seen their team play yet. Oh man, I'm really getting some good ones in for our high class folks. Hamilton. All right, talk to me about this Stanford and
I
Hamilton
saw
matchup.
Joaquin. I saw Joaquin as an underdog against Tunny Grove and win that game by 3 scores. So it's hard to pick against Joaquin, but Ganado just seems like they're at the next level. Hamilton, our Region 2 team, I mean, it's rare when I would say a DFW region is like really, really weak, but our 2A Division 1 teams, since we lost Toller, this is where Toller would end up being right now.
Yeah,
And a Toller Stanford game would be absolutely juicy. I'd be excited about that. Once you lost Toller, it's kind of like, next man up, and next man is not great. So I think Stanford's going to win big. I think Ganado's going to win big, and we're going to get a Stanford Ganado State final
that should be pretty sweet, guy.
Thursday
Division two. It
morning.
looks like Munster's on their way back to state. They're really playing some good ball. I think they're playing Groover out in Mineral Wells.
Are they playing
I believe
Grover
that's
on
where that game
Sesame
is.
Street? Can you tell me
Oh brother.
how to get to Sesame Street?
And then Shiner taking on Bremen. What do you think
Oh,
about these games?
man,
Who's going to stay? It's
everything's
over.
okay.
You got to know when to jump out of a
I
song.
can't talk about Shiner
Bust.
because we have like rules about UIL stuff. I don't want to lose your credentials.
No, don't lose the credentials. I don't want that to happen.
Don't want to.
All right, so don't talk about them, but talk about Munster on their road to this little blue part here which says winner.
Yeah, I think Munster. We're going to see a Munster Shiner final. You have a little bit of cheese, a little bit of
A little Munster cheese.
little
And
adult
then,
beverage, a little bit of the bubbly over there, and we're gonna have Wednesday night a little and have a little fun. I think that's what we're gonna do in this game. Uh, Yeah, Munster's just the way they beat Collinsville again rematch, but this was one of those rematches that there was a no brainer, kind of like
Successful.
Kilgore and Tyler Chapel Hill. It shows you how good this team is. They're going to win big. Fremont. Bremond Shiner's got a little bit more intrigue for me, but I think Region 3 for Bremond just wasn't strong enough. And the way Shiner beat Justin, I trust Shiner after that. So give me Shiner, give me Munster.
Give them Munster, and then we're going to give them Munster for the state title.
And are you going to put Munster
So
on the show next week or in 2 weeks if they go to the
if I
state
can get
final?
it, definitely in 2 weeks. I want to have them on this week if I can get somebody out to Childress. First, I got to grab a map and find out where Childress is, and then if I can get somebody out there, we're going to get it.
You
We
got
got
to go to
two
Wichita
Abilene
Falls and
games.
keep going. Got to keep going.
Two Abilene games this week. Those of you that work hard in Gunter, you're going to have to work extra hard Monday through Thursday because you got to leave early to get out to Abilene for that 4 o'clock start. You're not working Friday. So know that, people that live in Gunter. Don't go to the place of business at about 2 or 3 because there ain't going to be anybody there. The Peacock family's heading out to Abilene to catch the rest of the boys playing. So there you have it. Diggs, where are you going to be? You're going to be at the Star this week?
I'm going to pull a Kenny and just stay at the Star all weekend. I might
Sounds
just
like Kenny.
pitch a tent and spend the night. Wake up Friday
Sounds
morning
like a Kenny
and do
move.
it again.
I can dig it. Sounds like a Kenny move. You don't even have to pitch a tent. Those locker rooms are so spacious and luxurious. Just lay down there under Tony Romo's old locker. Take a nap. All right, buddy boy. We did it again. One last left. And then I don't know what you're going to get me for White Elephant, but it'll be a surprise. Whatever it is, I'm sure it's going to be garbage, and I'll pass on to somebody else for their gift. Sorry about that, Diggs. You do good at shopping for stuff.
Maybe
Sure.
I'm just thinking because you said white elephant and a gift. Maybe we should give the gift next week of revisiting the fantasy game for the state championship. We pick one receiver, one quarterback, one running back.
All right, let's do it because the fact that we won't have to talk about results until the campfire in April, that's great. Yeah, I'll do that easily. By then, you would have forgotten. I would have like, man, I can't believe I beat the pants off you in state, which would never happen. You'll probably pick some 6-man guys, knowing you, and you don't know about them. But Johnny Johnson is one of the best running backs I ever
about this guy.
All right, brother. I will talk to you next week.
Salute. Keep digging for wisdom.